Welcome back. You're watching Daybreak on Citizen Television. Thank you for staying with us here on the broadcast. The counties are concerned and the heads of the respective counties across the 47 devolved units are calling upon the government to release money from the exchequer for service delivery purposes across the devolved units. The chairperson of the Council of Governors, Anne Mombe Waigoro, and her vice chairperson, Ahmed Abdullahi, say if the matter isn't resolved, then the counties will come to a halt. Here is the debate that happened in the Senate yesterday, which is the house that checks over the governance model across the devolved units, and here is what the senator said.
It is very difficult for a governor to sit in the county. He's unable to pay doctors, he's unable to do any development, year goes year in out, and the governor finds himself even in a very difficult position politically, because you have to deliver the promises you made to the people and the expectation of the people. So the monies have been reduced without justification. And for that particular reason alone, then this bill fails. It must be reconsidered again. Government must make an effort and make sure that this is met. We may say that we are paying debts. We may say that we are not raising enough revenue, but I can assure Kenyans that Kenya has a lot of money and a lot of sources of money. It's only that they have been mismanaged.
The Division of Revenue Bill, as it came from National Assembly, following the requirements by Article 218, the memorandum said that they are deviating because money has been sent to the Hustler Fund. Now, I want distinguished men and women of this august house for us to ask ourselves. And this is a challenge that I'm now challenging the KK administration. Your priorities are health. Your priorities are agriculture. Those two are devolved functions. Why are you adding 45 billion to health and keeping the money in the national government and then sending the money to the county government?
How can we possibly sit as a Senate of the Republic of Kenya, Mr. Speaker, and be comfortable that of the monies that we devolve to our county governments, in excess of 70, and in some counties even 80%, are being consumed under recurrent expenditure, Mr. Speaker, leaving very little amounts to, Mr. Speaker, to do actual development, Mr. Speaker. Yet, we have passed PFM regulations, and we know what the statutory requirement is. But I can tell you for a fact, not a single county government, check in your counties, colleagues senators, not one county government in this country is compliant with the provisions of PFM with regards to the division between recurrent and development.
Counties have not been able to receive enough resources. Mr. Speaker, my county, Baringo, received 6.4 billion in the current financial year, Mr. Speaker. If you look at that amount, a substantial part of that money, Mr. Speaker, goes to recurrent expenditure in terms of salaries and others. And you are left with a very small amount for development. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, we allocate, like in this particular bill, we are proposing 385 billion to go to the counties. But if you go to the counties, Mr. Speaker, there is little development seen in those counties. In fact, you see more what CDF has done as opposed to what money from these county governments has done.
Senators there in the session at the Senate yesterday, Dan Manzo and Dr. Bone Khalwale, Honorable Owen Baya. Dr. Khalwale, may I begin with you? Honorable Manzo, you said that there's money. The government says there isn't enough. But Dr. Khalwale, may I begin with you? Is it concerning that almost 13 years after Katiba 2010, we are still having problems with regards to money coming from the exchequer to the counties? And how consequential can this be in terms of service delivery?
We all want all our county governments to be properly resourced. But the attempt to give the impression that the problems they're having are purely because of little, in quotes, little money coming from the national government should be disabused. The law is very clear. not less than 30% of the money that goes out to counties should be seen to have been used for development. What some governors have done, in fact, majority of them, is that they have converted county governments into employment bureaus so that the money that then goes to them is purely for recurrent. You have seen in some counties governors expending money on functions like security. They have hired another team of security youth who they pay. Some of them are misused almost to resemble a militia. If those youth who are being used to hover around the governor and be seen to give security and attempt to do enforcement in terms of collection of taxes at markets, if they were replaced by nurses, clinical officers, then the health system would become functional. So the inefficiencies in the administration that is done by governors should also be addressed. For your information, 10 years ago, share of revenue was at 180 billion. Today, the debate that we were having yesterday, CRA, Commission of Revenue Allocation, was advising that counties be given 407. So things have changed for the better. It is time for we as senators to assure the public that our oversight is strong enough to ensure that be it 407 billion as recommended by CRA, or be it the 425 billion that governors are requesting for, or be it the 385 billion that the National Treasury is saying is ready to give, we should assure the public as senators that our oversight is strong enough for this money not to be seen to go and give governors an opportunity of self-aggrandizement. The money should be seen to be going to cause development.
Dr. Khalwale, then you have mentioned a critical point of financial malfeasance across the counties. But what has the Senate done adequately in terms of calling out and censuring this government? Of course, there's a committee that depends on the Auditor General's report as to how that money was spent across the counties. What has been the censure point of any since the devolved system of governance in 2013? And what is the thin line, explained to me, between the misuse or the embezzlement of the funds across the counties and the national government, which now says there's not enough money to pay you guys? Hold on, we are raising more revenues. That's what Rigathi Gachagua said yesterday.
I don't want to look like I'm condemning governors and on the other hand that I am protecting the national government. It is true, just like governors have failed in many aspects about management of this resource, the national government in the last 6 to 8 months has also done very badly in terms of releasing money. At the moment, most counties are suffering because the release of money is 3 months behind schedule. It's a pity. As to your question about what the Senate has done, we have a vibrant public accounts committee in the Senate chaired by Senator Moses Kajwang, and they're doing a good job. Originally, it was very frustrating because governors used to refuse to appear before this committee. Instead, they were seeking refuge in the courts. But it has gone on and it's now full circle. The courts have now been very clear that governors must attend invitations at the Senate.
By the
so things are getting better and better. I remember when I was the chairman of public accounts, we would go to the committee expecting the governor to arrive. Instead, you are served with a court order that they have gone to court and the court has issued stopped the process. But all that has now been settled. They must come. In fact, it has improved to the extent that in our committee now of public accounts, the EACC sends a representative so that it is real time. The issues that become so open, then the EACC takes over on the spot. So the real thing that I want to urge the National Assembly, because the National Assembly, we're not blaming them, but they could do better. they should make sure that accounts are audited faster. Like now, the accounts that have been concluded in terms of audit is 2020-2021. So it means the malpractices that were practiced between 2020 and 2021 to date, governors are just sitting pretty. But if they could speed it up so that then this can come for audit by the county public account.
A final question before I come to Senator Manzo and Honda Bebaya.
Yeah.
The Narok County Senator, Ledama Olekina, raised a very pertinent matter of some funds, for example, allocated more than 40 billion to the Ministry of Agriculture, or even to health, let's say, and these are devolved functions to some extent.
Yes.
Why then do you think there is that micromanagement level of some funds remaining with the national government, yet the function is devolved? What's the point?
That is an age-old complaint and observation made by Ledama. As Senate, we have insisted from 2013 that money should follow the functions. And since the function of agriculture, as correctly said by Senator Olekina, is gone to counties, there's no point of the funds remaining in Nairobi. And the argument has been that there are certain aspects in terms of coordination, in terms of multinational donation grants and so on, that must remain in Nairobi. We are saying that the function has gone to counties, all the monies should follow that function.
Okay.
Let me give you an example. In health, we have funds from donor communities to manage, for example, HIV, AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. Those funds arrive, and then they are managed from Afya House. It should not be the case.
As a senator, isn't that not concerning then?
It is concerning, and that's why you can see me supporting Senator Olekina.
Okay.
So these funds, when then they remain at Afya House, they are attempting to then micromanage the counties. What they need is to come to us and tell us, give us a tool so that this money can then follow the function of health, which is in the counties. And we shall tell them, thank you very much. We already have the tool.
Okay.
And the instrument that we have created is the additional allocation of funds, which the senator here, passed is it 3 months ago, 4 months ago?
Okay.
Yeah. So we are up to it.
Okay.
The only problem is that then the central government has this bad history that they have not made use of the Senate fully. In fact, right from the time of devolution, there was an attempt to make a weak Senate so that devolution would be on the back burner. A strong Senate makes a successful devolved system.
And the devolution of power and resources from the Senate. Senator Manzo, you said the government has enough money, but on the contrary, the counties and the heads of the counties are crying that there's no money. How did you establish the government has money yet the counties have not received any money?
You know, this country collects a lot of money in terms of taxes.
True.
You know, this allocation to the counties is 15% by the Constitution. And the government must ensure that the 15% goes to the counties since they have 85%. Now, there's a delay of 4 months. And you can imagine a governor seated in any quarter, like my governor, Mutula Kilonzo Jr., seated at Wote, expecting, you know, a central bank and central government to release monies for development and other activities of the county, and it fails. And the key is health and agriculture. And that's where the big trouble is. We still have a lot of monies stuck in health and in agriculture. And when you go to hospitals in the counties, you find that a lot of functions which would have been performed as one stop in the hospital, patients are still being referred to go to private practitioners to look for some of the processes before a patient is treated, and that has really affected health in the countries and the livelihood of people. So I believe the monies in Nairobi for those two departments, first of all, should be redistributed to the counties, and that's what should top up. This 32 billion or so they want to cut from the counties, from the proposal of Commission of Revenue Authority, will adversely affect the counties. And that's why we are saying, and I'm happy, today is when we are voting for this bill, and I can hear the leader of majority complaining, and the whip is here. He is also complaining. So this is government. They should really help us today to find a way of, at third reading, of making sure that this bill goes for mediation, so that the top-up is done, because there is enough money in the country, is all that it is lost to corruption. 2 billion, it's reported 2 billion shillings get lost every day through cartels and the contracts. Remember the machines, there are certain machines which were hired and leased, and the national government kept that, and when they were taken to the counties, some of them, even their leases have expired. And luckily, Dr. Bonnie Arwala is a medical doctor. He understands this very well. And I think he should be the first one to really help Senate and help the government to get this right. There are a lot of equipments and all that money, which I believe was mismanaged since devolution started. This control should be left to Senate and the counties, and the monies should get devolved to the counties, especially in agriculture and health. There's a very, very big problem. The agriculture be done in the counties, and this is where, the farms are and where the farmers are. It's still being managed from Nairobi. Honestly, I believe governors have their own CECs in charge of agriculture.
Thank you.
But very little activity is going to the country. So let the money leave Nairobi. Let's reduce in some other national activities and cover the 32 or so billion shillings, which has been reduced by the government.
Okay, Dr. I'll come to you shortly. Honorable Owen Baya, this as well doubles up as a problem, because civil servants from 6 ministries have not been paid equally.
Yeah.
And the counties are also experiencing that level, or the second tier of governance model in the country. How can we best address this crisis of lack of pay of civil servants?
I think this is happening in the country, and at a time when we know, just like we know in Parliament, the first charge to any account is usually the debt. I think Citizen TV this morning showed how much money. I think in this in March, this government paid 121 billion as debt, and I think March, April, there's a lot of money that has been paid to debt. The debts that are coming in, as a president, probably you need to sit down. Yes, I have debts here. I have this. So what do I do? Do I go for a loan to offset the debts, or do I use on-source revenue to offset the debt? Now, when that happened, it actually swept off the money, and the money went to paying public debt. So eventually, what is the next collection? What is KRA doing? What we are seeing is a situation where this government is trying to manage the economy and paying debts and paying salaries and everything from on-source revenue apart from borrowing. Okay. On the flip side, what the former administration used to do was, every time money was needed, they would still go borrow, offset debt. They still go borrow, pay salaries. But I think this president has said, well, a minute, can we do it differently? Can we actually still collect money and pay? And that's why what we are seeing is a situation where we are actually using own collection to pay debt and to pay salaries. And that is why the delay is. On the basis of, one, the first thing you do, and the law is very clear, the first thing you do when you get your money, pay your debts first. Okay. And then now look at the other things. It is very unfortunate that this is happening, but I think the president has a plan. He's saying, can we manage this economy with our own source revenue?
Important.
On taxes.
Okay, I'll come to the KRA question before I come to you, Dr. And you have mentioned the debt repayment. Treasury data indicates that the government's financial position was better in March than in February, despite the large debt repayments.
Yes.
Contradicting public statements by officials portraying the government was broke. But revenue for the month of March grew by 84.2 billion shillings to 260.9 billion shillings. And Kenya's debt repayment also bill grew to to 121 billion you have mentioned in March, from
Yes.
66 billion in February.
Yes.
But for March, these are the figures, grew by 84 to 206 billion Kenya shillings.
Yes.
And Treasury officials are saying that the claims by the presidency and politicians that Kenya was broke isn't true.
You see, I want you to do the analysis. The debt of February was 66 billion, isn't it? It moved, tripled, actually doubled to 120 something, 121. Now, if you paid debt 60 something, and then now you're paying 120 something, what comes in gets swept out. What comes in gets swept out. That is what is happening right now. And I think what we should do is to commend this government for collecting taxes. Collecting taxes. That the taxes that were not being collected, I think this president, what he has done, he has said, I do not want any waivers. He done. You go to the president today with a request for a waiver, he'll tell you he don't want that because he wants taxes collected. So I believe given 2-3 months, this country will stabilize because the KRA now is collecting more money. This government is collecting more money. But you see, as you get the money and you continue paying and you have said, I'm not borrowing, the government becomes broke. He doesn't have, because every coin that gets in today goes out. Yes.
No problem with that, Honorable Baya.
Yes.
But here is again the concern. If you have collected more, raised more in revenues, why then not pay civil servants on time? Allow me to quote this Treasury official on anonymity.
Of course.
He said the government is not broke because the government has so far been able to pay debt obligations when they fall due. In other words, he said we have not defaulted on debt obligations.
Yes, because of the amount of money that is being collected. We are not defaulting. And I do not think this country will go into a default mode, to default on payment. That the president has said he will not do, because it will mean debt restructuring. Debt restructuring is an expensive thing. And he has said he does not want to go into debt restructuring. What he collects, he will pay. But actually, one of the other things that you need to look at, Kadir, is that what other charges are there? What other charges are there, apart from just paying debt? Because that guy is basing his information on only paying debt. But what other charges are there that this government is servicing to ensure that we are not caught up in, or we are not put in the red list in terms of financial management? It's a new model of financial management that Kenya Kwanza is bringing in, and that new model will have shockwaves here and there, but eventually this country will stabilize. And what I'm happy about is that we are going back to the Kibaki times, when we were able to take care of our budget, and I look forward to having a balanced budget without having to go to debt. You remember what Bill Clinton did in the United States?
Okay.
Yes, he left a balanced budget, and I hope that by the time William Ruto is finishing his 5th year, we will have a balanced budget in this country.
What you clearly, however, dodged, though, is that despite the payment of debt, civil servant also salaries must come on time if your revenues are what you have said collected, or rather there is an increment in terms of revenue collection. Dr. You had a point earlier on?
Yes, I had an earlier one, but I don't want to drag people backwards. Huh?
You can summarize it as
my thoughts on what you've just been asking.
Okay, go ahead.
Obaya.
Yes.
You see, the way the system works is not what the tone of that reporter is trying to...
Not reporter.
Yes.
He is a Treasury official.
I'm saying the tone of the reporter. Maybe you call the guy, he'll say I was misquoted.
Just that I never wanted to reveal the name of the
so
official.
the way it works is that in Kenya, we spend as we collect. We spend as we collect. There is an experience in one African country, I don't know, the other one in South Africa, for example. They have collected, so they don't wait to collect in order to spend. If that was the case in Kenya, there would be no delay in salaries, okay? So now, once you collect, you have money to pay. Because the president is promoting the rule of law, he's saying the law provides that the first charge to the consolidated fund shall be payment of debt. So when we have collected, legally, the first charge should be you pay debt. Once you do that, in another 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 days, you will have collected enough to pay public servants. So we are now faced with a situation whereby things are being done legally in an environment where we spend as we collect. I want to be persuaded by the economists that my assumption is wrong. My assumption is, with this prudent management, in another 3 to 12 months, we will have overcome, and we shall now be able to pay everything on time. This is not the first time we are going through this phase. We went through this phase when we were transiting from President Moi's government to Mwai Kibaki's government. It took time. Mwai Kibaki changed the political philosophy and said, whereas Moi was doing reasonably well, but my philosophy is we want a philosophy of a working nation. A working nation that has people and companies that pay taxes. That way, we'll grow our economy. In came President Uhuru, and up to now, many people don't appear to understand what his philosophy was. But now, President Ruto is saying the philosophy of Mwai Kibaki was resonating with other best world practices. I'll maintain the same, encourage people to pay taxes, companies to pay taxes, so that we spend what we have, not spend what we borrow. In the process of doing that, it has given birth to maandamano. Because the people whose companies were enjoying tax exemption are now being forced, or not being forced, being asked to pay for taxes, so they are funding instability to say that this is a government that is not going to.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
It's a claim that you can't substantiate.
I don't think so.
If you invited me, I can speak to it.
Okay,
because we are not speculating. We are attempting. We are attempting to lead a republic, and leading a republic is not a one-man show.
Dr.
So,
whilst that is appreciated,
yes,
this is an accountability show.
Yes,
based on facts and substantial argument in terms of our debate here.
Yes.
In terms of, so the funding question that you said was meant to destabilize the country was by some forces. These are claims that have been made over time, but it's one that as a doctor and as a senator and as a ranking figure on this country, you can't substantiate or you can't pin names on that.
But I'll be happy, Baya, as you take over the mic.
Yes.
I would be happy for Kenyans to understand that I'm constrained because I've been named to sit on the team for bipartisan talks. So if I push my belief too much, it can negate the intention of those talks. Those talks are meant to bring the country together.
Okay. Which is well understood. Which is well understood, but your beliefs have to be factual. Your beliefs have
they are factual.
We can give you that.
I don't think so.
Okay, I'll come to you.
What I want to say is that, first of all, President Uhuru followed the footsteps of President Kibaki. He made a very big attempt to stabilize the country. And even a lot of experts in President Kibaki's government continue to work with President Uhuru. So you cannot really say that there was a change. And even the current president was his deputy, and a very effective one in the first term. It's only that there were a little political quarrels which followed, but the real mechanism which runs the government still remained intact and remained the same. So I want to believe that the so-called taxes, you know when President Kibaki came to power, Kenyans believed in his leadership and believed he was fighting corruption, which he was, and therefore volunteered to pay taxes. People queued at KRA to pay taxes and the country stabilized. And I think we should still pay taxes. But you cannot pay taxes when the economy is not performing. The economy is not performing because of a high cost of living. The high cost of living is caused by cost of fuel, because the transportation affects all the prices, and that's where the trouble is. So I think we need to look at that and not blame each other, but to look for a way of constructively building the nation. Where people have done well, they should be told they'll be done well. Where people have allowed monies to be sipped through corruption, in very many projects and cartels, we should understand that is a problem. We should be seeing an effort on how to fight corruption. This government, since it was formed, it has never made a statement on how to fight corruption. there's no proper methodology. There is, the institution dealing with fighting corruption has not been devolved to the counties where a lot of money has been sent. So we still, why is the current regime entertaining corruption? Why is it quiet on some non-corrupt officials?
Okay.
Why is it withdrawing cases from people who are known to be holding Kenya's money instead of that money being surrendered back to the state?
But as a lawyer, I'll come to you, Honorable. As a lawyer, then, Senator Manzo, two quick things here. You pointed out the cost of living crisis.
Yes.
But that is a matter that your presidential candidate before the August election dismissed in his campaigns. He said, no, that's not an issue, that's not important. That's what he said, Raila Odinga. How suddenly is it important for you guys, and it's among the 4 key issues itemized in the bipartisan talks?
Well, cost of living then was being managed through the subsidies. Subsidies were withdrawn immediately a new government was formed, and that's why cost of living has become very high, and therefore cost of doing business. Why is electricity all of a sudden has been increased? And when you look at, if you make a payment under the analysis, you'll find like for those who pay tokens, let's say for 5,000 shillings, 3,000 shillings is unexplained to where it has gone to. This money is being collected by the government, but it's not being disclosed. So Honorable Raila Odinga was very right in his own way on insisting that the subsidies should not have been withdrawn suddenly. That's not how economies are run. It should have gone slowly to relieve Kenyans till the economy peaks.
The specific question was not on subsidies, but on the cost of living, which he wholeheartedly...
Which is paged on subsidies and paged on transport and paged on fuel and paged on electricity.
And a key question on an election period, which he dismissed, that's my question. What would you have done different if the Kenyan people accorded you the mandate to be in power today?
Well, we would not have withdrawn the subsidies with immediate effect. We would have fought corruption. Therefore, the monies which are being lost, 2 billion shillings daily, would be useful to Kenyans and will still remain in treasury. There were a lot of, there are a lot of people, like in road construction and in some of these projects, you find the BQ has not been followed. Therefore, you end up with a weak road, or some of the things in the BQ have been left, and these are the contractors to quickly be paid because they are giving kickbacks to government officials.
And Senator Manzo, the 2 billion claim was made by none other than the former head of state, Uhuru Kenyatta. Mathematically, that's 60 billion and 700 billion, 20 billion Kenya shillings annually. That's more than a third of what we collect in revenues. No action was taken. The head of state made the statement, no action, no one was prosecuted. It was in last regime.
There are quite a number of arrests then. Who the current regime have set these people free. The DPP, in one way or another, has withdrawn the cases.
All right. One final question, Honorable Baya, just hang on. How then do you explain as a lawyer on the trumped-up claims made by Kuria Obadiah, ranking DCI official, who said, I was under duress and pressure from the top DCI echelons to fix the former Madeira MP and now Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. Why aren't institutions certainly not working in this country when it comes to the capacity of the holders of those offices?
I believe institutions should be allowed to operate without interference from the national government. We should institutionalize our country. We should strengthen institutions and allow them to do their job. That's what President Kibaki did, and that really helped the country. The allegations by a boss of DCI there did not live long. You remember when the current government came to power, they said they will not use police to do politics. Having no regulations of Public Order Act, the regulations expired 10 years ago, and without a proper structure, the police are now were used, to disrupt the peaceful mandamanos which are constitutional. So the current government must live into its one. Let police do their job.
Okay. Yes, Honorable Baya.
Yes, I want to follow up with what Dr. Ali was talking about. You see, one of the things, the key planks of the Maandamano and these issues that Azimio is bringing up is the issue of subsidies. When they talk about reduce the cost of bunga, and they're very specific that return subsidies, you can very well know where they're moving to. There are people in this country who benefited immensely from subsidies, and they made a lot of money from subsidies. Now, one of the things is that these people who now cannot get subsidies are ganging up to say, bring back the subsidies so that they can get money and fleece the people of Kenya. But William Ruto has said very clearly, no subsidies. Now, why I'm saying the claim by Honorable Dr. Boni Khalwale is true, the people who are not now benefiting from subsidy are funding these things. Why is it that the key plank, what I would think Raila Odinga and his team would say, bring down the cost of unga, but not give a solution which failed? They know that up to today, money for subsidies, we saw it in the budget when it came to the National Assembly, around 4 billion. I think 4 billion could not be accounted for. But if you look at it, where did it go? It went to subsidies. The people who are now starved of that money of subsidies are saying, go to Mandamano so that subsidies might come back. So there are, apart from the political issues that are coming out from the Mandamano, there's a strong economic issues that are coming in. These people want Mandamano because they want unga to go down. They want fuel to go down because there was subsidy in fuel and they were benefiting from it. They want the cost of living, actually a lot of things to go down. The people who are not getting the exemptions, tax exemptions today, are funding these mandamanos. And that is true.
Okay.
That is
That's
true.
not a statement of fact.
Just hang on.
It is a statement of, because if I was benefiting from exceptions in tax, today William Ruto has removed them. I was a big beneficiary of it. What will I do?
Okay.
I would angle myself with the people that are doing mandamanos so that this can come back and they can continue to benefit.
But Honorable Baya,
yes,
when you mention, when you make an allegation of some people funding the destabilization, what Dr. Arya has labeled it as,
yes,
there must be an accountability for
yes.
any destabilization attempt on the stability of the country.
Yes.
I mean, what is the money that went into that destabilization process? Who are they? And as the Deputy Majority Leader of the National Assembly,
how much
at the national level,
yes,
what then is the actionable thing that you would do as a leader in terms of addressing that problem?
Today, our committee, and I want to tell you
very straightforward questions.
And I'll answer you very straightforward.
Okay.
The leader, the chairman of finance committee,
Kuria Kimani.
No, the previous was Gladys Wanga, a lady I respect a lot. She belonged to the Azimio, she belongs to the Azimio coalition, then NASA coalition. Uhuru Kenyatta allowed Gladys Wanga, who was actually from the other part of the coalition, to manage the finance committee of the National Assembly, which oversights the national government. They failed to look at the real issues. Helios, you read about Helios. Today, you see a guy who was paid 415 million, benefited from, in 3 months he was paid just because he advised government to misuse its money. And
he said he was smart.
He was smart.
He said he was smart. But who was the person who was supposed to supervise this? Gladys Wanga, because he's the chairperson of a finance plan. Today, Kuria Kimani is sitting in this committee to bring accountability. Those people who misadvised government and did these things today. Today, Helios thing is coming in, the subsidies will come in, all these kind of things. Kuria Kimani is up to the task because he is aligned to the president's vision, and therefore he's able to say, we want to know what happened. Those people who got tax exemptions, how was it done? How did Treasury do this tax exemption such that a lot of money, you know, there are people today who wait and they just send in papers and KRA will refund them a lot of money and they live on that. Why? Because they are tax exemptions. You know, when you get tax exemptions, you pay taxes and then there are rebates, there are all manner of things that are paid back to you. Kuria Kimani is up to the task. And as leaders in the National Assembly, we have said all these people did all these things. We want to know what happened and we want accountability, and they must, at the end of the day, be held accountable. Institutions like DCI and anti-corruption must move, swing into action to ensure that the money that was lost through that handshake regime must be brought back to Kenya.
And it seems like you have already gave us the nitty-gritty details. Is that then an already made determination?
No. Parliament is doing its work. And what William Ruto has done is said, let Parliament do its work.
Parliament is supposed to be doing its work in a democracy. The concern has been
it was stifled in the 12th Parliament.
Well, I wonder how 416 members are stifled by a political party leader, because you ought to be exercising power on behalf of the people. That's what the Constitution anticipates and the very bedrock principle of our democracy.
Some of them,
Dr. Yes.
Some of them have admitted that they are cows.
Yes.
And that's how one person ends up herding them.
Yeah.
The issue that Senator Manzo keeps on going back to, the issue of subsidy. Manzo, please don't play with the intelligence of Kenyans. Kenyans know that this famous thing you call subsidy was only there for 30 days. And at the end of 30 days, none other than Peter Munya, the then minister, came, cancelled it, and announced that it had come to an end. So when he tells me they would have continued to give subsidy, when actually, during the campaign period, Munya cancelled it because it was untenable, he beats the logic of all Kenyans following this program. The second point he has made is that we are terrible, we have said nothing about fighting corruption. And he's a lawyer. He knows that you don't fight corruption by making statements. Corruption is fought through strengthening the institutions that are legally expected to sort out issues of corruption. 2, you give them the autonomy and financial support that they require to execute their mandate. So a lawyer wants people following this program to think that when you go back and start playing to the gallery the way they like doing in Maandamanos and so on, then you're fighting corruption. No. The DPP was not acting on impulse. He was breathing a sigh of relief because he was being pushed to move against people using the tag of corruption in a circumstance where the process had been weaponized to manage the politics of the handshakers. So now that the bad old days are going, let them go completely. Let the DPP enjoy his independence. If this case, whether it is from the Azimio side or the Kenya Kwanza side, deserves to be discontinued, let him be allowed to do it as an independent office.
Okay,
and be financed the way we are now financing the committee. We've even gone further.
Okay.
We've given the police financial autonomy,
which is supposed to be
so that they're able to do so that they're able to do investigations without coming back to people in the executive who they are investigating. That is how corruption is fought, Mheshimiwa. I think because you've been very busy in the past, you had just overlooked that.
I don't think so. You know, one way of making sure that corruption is fought properly is to make sure that the body dealing with corruption and the ESCC is strengthened as the facilities, as the monies, as the staff, and is able to cover the whole country. Because corruption is not only in Nairobi, it has also been devolved to the counties. And that's where a lot of corruption is taking place. And unless you counter it from the counties, then you are not likely to be efficient in that. And when it comes to the independence of the DPP, as much as it is claimed that he was forced, then there's before the DPP allows any prosecution to take place, any person to be charged, they have already satisfied themselves that there is watertight evidence to warrant a conviction. Now, when a new government comes in, when the DPP had certified himself, there was enough evidence to warrant, a prosecution. Instead of now going into prosecution, you have the same DPP withdrawing the matter. It means then it is the current government influencing or forcing the DPP to withdraw the matter in one way or another. But and we saw quite a number of cases were withdrawn for people who are now in cabinet.
Okay, but I mean,
same DPP, two regimes.
Okay, allow me to draw a distinction here because my responsibility as a professional is that I speak for the masses who are watching this broadcast.
Yes.
Senator Manzo, then, as a lawyer, where does the line lie for you of independent institutions and holders of the respective offices created out of Constitution 2010 to exercise their capacity? Because you have a senior DCI official who says that I was under pressure to trump up charges against then Madira MP, the DPP himself on live television saying I was under duress, even called names, and for even to some extent he was ethnically profiled for the position he held before, that was during the past government. And now you're accusing him of being under duress from this government again. I mean, how will institutions then thrive in our democratic setup when they're under duress, as you have claimed, and previously as he himself claimed?
The good news is that the Constitution allows the DPP at any stage of any trial to withdraw the charges. That's the good news. The Constitution allows him. He may present the evidence in court. He may present whatever he has, and from the way the case looks, then, because he can review a case at anyone's time, the DPP has that power to review. If he conducts review and is satisfied, the Constitution allows him to withdraw any prosecution. Okay. There are very many other prosecutions he should have withdrawn, but they are still there in courts.
For example?
The case against the Honorable Keter, and the Birdi in Naivasha. Honestly, although Keter has lost the election and Birdi is no longer a nominated member of parliament, that's one of the cases he would have reviewed and withdrawn.
And you know the details of that case?
Yeah, I know the details.
Does the threshold warrant a suspension of that case?
I think...
Yes, Uncle, I'll give you the final word. Let me sample what the viewers are saying as well, because we had engaged them. Hashtag on Twitter is Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. Here's what's coming up. Godi Barasa, where it says, in the wise words of the Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, who said that fixing the economy is not an instant coffee-making affair. As a country, we should be patient and allow this administration to fix things for our benefit. Magwas 3 says, when the president said that he has lowered the prices of unga, Kenyans expected all the brands of unga will retail at Kenya shillings 150. But it's only 2 brands, yet their expiry date is after 10 days. Kenyans are being quite suspicious. Jay Musoma says it will be prudent for Parliament in Kenya to oversee the regulation of what quality of maize is making its way into the country in the name of cheap unga. The government should tell Kenyans if it's genetically modified organisms or not, and the country of origin as well. Amanganga Mustaf says Grain Industries Limited cannot supply unga countrywide. Let the deal be extended to other millers so that Kenyans are not subjected to difficulties because of tendering greed. Mikey says what the government needs to do is to bring back silos in western regions and ensure millers get their supply from there, hence regulate the quality and the quantity supply and help plan for shortages later on. Oringe Waso says it's been about 9 months since the Kenya Kwanza administration took the leadership of this nation, but what worries the majority of Kenyans is that the same administration is perpetually promising to bring down the cost of living. Things don't look good. Amanganga Mustafa again says counties are collecting money from Boda and Mama Mboga without a clear accountability platform which contributes to the failure of the national government to distribute or disburse funds back to the counties. Reme Butia says Kenya should borrow from Ethiopia, which has registered increased cereal productivity over the past 2 decades by revamping agricultural extension systems and input subsidy program which delivers seeds and fertilizers to farmers. Honorable Lilian Sioe, the price of unga has significantly dropped. This is good news for consumers who have been grappling with the high cost of food prices. And it is a clear indication that the government's efforts to make basic commodities affordable are bearing fruit. MC_Rumor says a lot of billions have been pumped to county governments, but there is nothing to smile about. The common mwananchi is not getting any development. I think corruption, he says, was only devolved. Large percentage of money is going to paying salaries. Athanas Mavuti Jr. says what the government is doing is the right thing. Let it manage the debts, salaries with collection instead of borrowing to pay debts or salaries. You cannot treat a wound by stepping on it. With time, the economy will stabilize. Well, Dr. 30 seconds each as we close. I had paused you.
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
No, I was just requesting my brother to be fair to the DPP. The DPP was at one time dragged into a media house, and he was challenged why he was not prosecuting William Ruto, then deputy president, for Aror and
Kimorel dams.
And the DPP stood his independence and said the office of the deputy president was not involved in procurement. He was speaking to the independent mind that we know. Now, when Senator Manzo then says, I don't know, is it Ketera and somebody case should have been removed. Who is he to say that? The fact that he's a lawyer, the fact that he's a legislator, but he does not sit in the institution called the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, cannot give him authority to speak the way he's speaking. The way our institutions work is that before the DPP discharges a character who had earlier on been accused, or recommends that that person goes ahead and be charged.
Thank you.
Before he does that, there is a battery of lawyers and activities that do assessment. They sit and they say in their collective wisdom, it will be that way. So now Mahanzo, an individual, without enjoying the kind of support that the DPP has in the institution, wants to make a determination that discontinue this one, continue. Institutions don't work that way.
The place of an institution is clearly defined and the process to that effect of the holders of that office.
Probably he's the lawyer in the case.
Okay.
Well, I just want to say independence of institutions is very important, and there are processes. In the case of Arwa and Chimorel, there was quite a number of documents with the DCI. You know where DCI was conducting investigations, and I believe those investigations have now been completed, and even had been completed during that time. And the DPP then has to look at the investigation, has to relook at it, and I really want to insist on this independence, and that the decision purely lies on him. He can review any case any time. He can still start any prosecution up to now. It is clearly that there were civil cases filed and also criminal cases proposed.
Thank you.
But I want to leave it to a process. But encourage him to be independent and also to be seen to be doing the right thing at all material times.
Thank you. Yes, Honorable.
I just want to speak to the issue of counties. I think counties should not only just be consumers of what national government is giving them, but also need to be producers. When we have productivity and production at the county levels, then we will not have these issues that come out in that salaries have not been paid and all that, because counties collect on-source revenue. What I would like to know is, when a county says we have not been able to pay salaries because national government has not given us money, on the other side, I also want them to tell us, but we collected this much money as a county. Okay. But for you to only demand for national government, and yet the Constitution allows you to collect taxes, and you have revenue sources, revenue streams that are given to you through the functions, I think it is also high time we started and Senate starts auditing.
Thank you.
How much money are counties collecting? I remember in Nairobi, the former governor went to court to stop Senate from questioning him or asking him questions about on-source revenue, because he said the Constitution does not allow Senate to oversight them on on-source revenue. Yeah. The question is, how much money are they collecting, such that we would like national government money to go to the counties so that they take care of development, but recurrent, sincerely, county governments should be able to get money from on-source revenue to pay for recurrent.
Asante. Senator, what do you expect from the first meeting set to happen of the bipartisan today? Familiarization, laying the groundwork, the expectations of the public?
There is no meeting.
Briefly. There will be no meeting?
The meeting that I see the media referring to is legislators meeting to have a cup of tea, maybe to exchange telephone numbers. As far as I'm concerned, and because I'm a member of this committee, the first meeting will be triggered by a decision of both houses that will give effect to this committee. The committee does not exist.
Yes.
Okay. It will exist once the names are tabled in the House, debated, and approved. After that, they'll hold the first meeting.
And you presented your names to the National Assembly?
We have as Kenya Kwanza.
Kenya Kwanza, we are presented.
Azimio has refused.
To present. Yeah. Probably Senator is here, he'll help us. He can tell us when they... So, until the due process is concluded, to call any meeting a meeting of bipartisan would actually be missing it by a mile.
Okay, there will be a meeting, but there is no bipartisan meeting.
There is no meeting.
So what will you be doing over a cup of tea then?
Maybe exchange numbers. Some of the members of parliament, and there are 400 of them these days, they are new to us. So it is a good opportunity for us
to know each other. That's a familiarization.
You see, what has happened is...
Thank you, Senator. We're out of time.
Okay.
Deputy Majority Leader, thank you for your time. And Kilifi North Member of Parliament. Senator Dan Manzo, Makueni County, your time is appreciated. And to the Senator representing Kakamega County, Dr. Bone Khalwale. Thank you, the bullfighter from Kakamega County. Your time is all appreciated. And thank you to you too for watching the broadcast. Your time is appreciated. Your company was worthy. And many thanks for your feedback. Up next, this is What's Cooking with Willis. Sure though, next week on Thursday, I'll be joining him for today or tomorrow might be the end of the holy month of Ramadan. Many thanks for your company. We'll see you tomorrow morning on the broadcast. Good morning.